Aloha, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Triple F podcast. I'm your host, Eva Andrade, and today we have special guest attorney Fritz Rolfing and Representative Diamond Garcia, who's going to go over the election results that happened right here in the state of Hawaii. While the rest of the nation went with a red wave, didn't quite happen here in Hawaii, so you want to stay tuned. Well, welcome to the show today, Representative Diamond Garcia, fresh off of your win,
Thank you. Aloha.
and Fritz Rolfing, my numbers buddy, who likes to go over results and numbers with me.
Aloha, Eva. Good to be with you.
Okay, so we're gonna now the rest of the country went into a red wave. It didn't quite come here to Hawaii. If you look at us, our bottom line numbers. But Diamond, I want to start with you because I think there's a red wave happening on your side of the island. So I'll throw it over to you and you can give us your thoughts of the election.
Yeah, so the red wave hit the country. It hit Hawaii, but just on the west side primarily. It just landed in Kalailoa and it kind of landed out here in the Kapolei Ewa area. As you know, we maintain the majority of our incumbents. Rep. David Alcos in District 41, that's Ewa Beach, Kalailoa, Ko'olina. He won re-election by a pretty good margin. In my district, we won re-election outright on the first printout. And then we also picked up District 40. So Julie Reyes Oda knocked out the incumbent Rose Martinez in District 40. We also picked up District 45, the Waianae Makaha seat, which is an open seat that has flipped red. And we also flipped the Waianae Senate seat. So the entire Waianae Coast is now has a Republican senator for the first time since statehood. So that's an awesome thing. The Waianae Coast is fully red. Kapolei Ewa is red. And also Senator Brenton Awa won his re-election as well on the North Shore.
So this shouldn't be a shock to our viewers and listeners because I remember a newspaper article, what was it, maybe about a month ago or 2 months ago, where you got the front page talking
Yeah.
about your district. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the article was entitled "West Oahu is a new Republican stronghold," and they were just looking at the pattern of results from the last two election cycles. It's always been trending more and more conservative. But what they found is when you have a candidate that is campaigning, making their message known, talking to the voters out here truly resonate with a limited government conservative message. And the results of that is they've been electing Republicans, and not just in partisan offices, but our council members out here, though they're nonpartisan, they are conservatives. Augie Toba, Andrea Tupola. And so the people out here, they're just sick and tired of what's happening in downtown Honolulu, this centralized government that controls everything. We we simply want a peaceful life. Leave us alone. Let us raise our kids how we want to raise our kids. Be free, less taxes, lower cost of living. And they're realizing that 70 years of one party rule isn't working for them. And they're now voting Republican, which is amazing because a vast majority of our residency out here is union membership. And normally the unions vote blue all the way. But what we're seeing is the blue collar labor force union members, they're switching over, they're voting red, not just here, but across the country.
That is such good news. And Fritz, you and I have talked so much about the vote here, and you and I remember what it was like to have 19 Republicans in the House when the floor
Right,
speeches
right.
were really, really good. But I know you brought up something very interesting when you were looking at the numbers about the blank vote. So why don't you share about that?
Well, Hawaii does always trace the blank votes. In fact, they calculate it into the percentages, and sometimes it can be a little misleading when you're trying to look at two candidates to see where they're at, because both their numbers, if there's a bunch of blank votes, their percentages will be lower, and that can kind of take you understanding, but lots of blank votes mean people are not, they're not happy with the choices they've been presented. And I was going through looking at exactly that, and I guess I figured we would be talking about that too. And I saw a couple of races with there was both a Republican and a Democratic candidate, and they were over 10% blank votes. So that's a case where I think that's when the voters are not happy with the favored candidate, but they really don't know who the challenger is, so they just leave their ballot blank. They know who they wanted to vote for president, maybe the U.S. Senate, but beyond that, they just did. There was not enough information given to them to decide, yes, I'm going to support this person. So it's a big red flag. And Oahu is the Oahu races show the most blank votes. In one race, I think it was the Molokai resident Oahu trustee race, which everybody in the whole state can participate in. And that may be one of the problems too, is people think, oh, I don't live on Molokai, so I shouldn't vote, or what do I know about this? But that was over 45% blank votes, you know. I mean,
Right.
blank votes almost won the election.
Well, I'll tell you, just from this past election cycle, and you guys, you both know that we've been doing voter guides with Hawaii Family Forum for a lot of years. And the biggest complaint we get is that people don't know enough about the candidates. And the Diamond, you were with me when we were doing our presentations with the Leadership Institute. And I'll tell you, it's amazing to me that in a place as beautiful and wonderful as Hawaii, with how we deal with relationships and how we make connections. I mean, right? The first question people always ask you is, where are you in grad? Because they're trying to place you, right? So to have a candidate running for office that is not known by the community is very concerning to me.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of these, especially the Republican candidates who are running for office, they're out there, right? They're trying to make themselves known. But I guess this is kind of a cautionary tale that there is more work to be done.
Definitely, there's a lot of work to be done. And flipping West Oahu red did not happen overnight. It's been a long time coming, but it truly took a lot of door-to-door work. I mean, I've knocked through my district multiple times, even after winning my election in 2022, just combing through it constantly to keep people updated of what's going on. And the more you talk to people, they realize that their values align with us. So we were able to register a bunch of people to join the GOP, and lots of Hawaiian homesteads, low voter turnout, but they have very conservative values. So how can we harness these people to actually get registered and then turn out? And so it's been lots of work to really flip West Oahu red, but it's work that must be done because we cannot afford to have this one party state. Local families are hurting from this one party state.
You make a really, really good point. In fact, I was looking at all the numbers for turnout in the general election, and in 2006 and 2018, it was a 52.7 turnout. Our lowest was in 2022 at 48.4. So
Mhm.
this one, and to be so that our listeners and viewers understand, we're not looking at the final printout yet, because we're recording this on Wednesday and there's still 18,000 votes that need to be counted. And so this could change a little bit. It'll be interesting to see if it does. But according to this printout, there was only 52.1% turnout, which means Hawaii is probably still lowest in the nation. I'm guessing on that. I haven't seen that, but I'm a little disappointed in the turnout numbers. So Fritz, I know you like to pull these numbers apart. What really stood out for you?
Well, what Diamond has been talking about is the big story. Well, there's another story, and that is that the shameful uh, conduct of the Hawaii state elections by the Hawaii State Elections Office. How in the world, right in front of the entire nation, we can't even close our polls because people want to go vote in person? There was only two locations, I understand, on Oahu and Kapolei and Honolulu. I mean, that's ridiculous. And that's the great experiment where they're going to mail ballots to everybody. And oh yeah, we'll have places where you can go early, right? Or on election day, you can vote in person. But you only give people two choices to two locations to go to for the entire island of, 500,000 voters or whatever. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It happened 4 years ago. It's not like it was a big surprise that people would want to vote on election day. And so they've completely ended the system of having a precinct and district election sites. And now they're down to two sites. I mean, I think they ought to have at least polling locations in every district. I think it's scandalous. I mean, we couldn't even, nobody knew where Hawaii had voted, and it was 5 in the morning on the East Coast
Uh,
until we got
which is my pet peeve, Fritz. It really drove me crazy. We didn't even have a printout yet. And
right,
AP was providing numbers saying that Hawaii went blue, and they
right.
even had numbers on the presidential election. And we
I don't
didn't
know
even
where
have a printout yet.
they would have gotten that. I mean, they normally will do exit polling, so they will make a call, just based on historical information and exit polling, but it's pretty tenuous until you actually have ballots cast, and it's just terrible. I mean, they should have had early election results, a first printout by at least 9 p.m., and they didn't have it until midnight, right? Um, everybody's gone to bed, and nobody knows what's happening, and then the printouts come in the wee hours of the morning, and we still don't have the final printout. So I think I hope there will be legislators, and I hope that Diamond is one of them, who will make some noise about this, because I just think it's embarrassing, and it's discouraging people from voting. You
Yeah.
want a good turnout. You say that mail ballots is going to increase turnout. Well, a lot of people don't like to vote mail ballots. They want to vote in person. So you need to go to the customer and not tell the customer, hey, you should have voted early. You kind of deserve this, that you have to wait 3 hours to get, to vote. That's just ridiculous.
Well, I know Common Cause just came out recently saying that it's absolutely ridiculous. What's happening is people are making it loud and clear that they want the ability to go to the polls.
Right.
So
That's right.
go ahead and mail it out to people all you want to. There are people that like that, and people will continue to do that, but they are never going to take away some people's right. And it is their right. If they want to
Right.
vote in person, they should be allowed to do so and not face so much um, it just seems like that they're trying to discourage people from going in person, right? That's what it seems like.
You kind of get that sense, if that's what they're doing, and they're refusing to change and accommodate people on a more reasonable basis. I mean, Hawaii had a large mail-in. Once we took the restrictions off of absentee balloting to allow anybody who wants to mail their vote in. I mean, it was over half wanted to do mail voting, so that was it. But then the other half wanted to wait till election day. That gives them actually more time to listen to arguments on both sides, and go to the go to vote in person. And they want to do that. Why wouldn't you accommodate that? Why do you punish them, or discourage them from doing that?
Yep, and I want to talk about what I think is a huge success story that we're not going to hear this anywhere else, but people, you're hearing it right here from Representative Diamond Garcia. Let's talk about the marijuana issue, because the marijuana issue is the issue, I believe, that really caused one of the representative turned senator who didn't quite make it lose their seat. So you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I think that's great news.
For sure. And it's interesting that probably the area with the most people smoking pot in public is probably the Waianae Coast, yet they're voting the most conservative. And so when you talk to lots of the voters out there who have faith foundations, they're socially conservative, and so they're not wanting to legalize marijuana on a recreational basis. They just know the impact it will have on families, children, schools, etc. And so what we saw was the incumbent state representative of District 45, Waianae Makaha, Cedric Gates, was currently the chair of the Agriculture Committee in the House, and he put forth the legalized recreational marijuana bill, which came this close to passing this past session. It was the closest it's ever gotten to passing the legislature. Thank God it didn't, but that got back to the people on the Waianae Coast, and they were not happy about that, and they spoke loud and clear this election. Samantha came 40 votes short of winning in 2022. This time she had a comfortable margin of victory. People are realizing what's happening in Hawaii. They're turning out to vote. It's a good thing for us out here. And marijuana is driving people to the polls because there's lots of people, kupuna, middle-aged, even young people who know the detrimental impact that the recreational marijuana would have on Hawaii's culture. So they're turning out, and in my race, Eva, my opponent made it clear that he supports recreational marijuana, and that just did not work out for him either.
And you know what's really interesting about that? I hope that the legislators are paying attention because nationwide marijuana failed
Yeah.
in the states that were debating it, and
Florida.
abortion also did not really do very well either. So I think that what people really care about, and you mentioned this earlier, is that people want food on the table and they want gas in their car and they want to be able to pay their bills. That's what people are paying attention to. But I think that's been wonderful news. So it's going to be interesting to see how those issues play out in the next legislative session. So Fritz, while we still have some time, okay, what didn't fare so well, and I know you know where I'm going with this. So we failed on the two constitutional amendment questions. And you did an interview with me to explain to people what a yes and a no vote was. Now, a few phone calls I've gotten today, though, has said that they were surprised at the amount of no votes. So maybe, even though we didn't win it, it does seem like if you look at the percentages on there, they don't have the widespread support that maybe people think they have. So you want to address that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's correct. So you got when they total up the votes on constitutional amendment number 1 relating to marriage, right? They do show the blank votes, as I mentioned, that they do for when there's candidate elections as well. In this case, the blank votes are highly relevant because for a constitutional amendment to pass, you have to get more yes votes than no and blank and overvotes. and there's actually a remarkably high number of overvotes on that. People, I guess, may have marked their ballot for both. I mean, it's almost half a percent or percentage point. 1,700 ballots were messed up and not counted. But those are all considered ballots cast under the Constitution, and therefore they can be counted. They're effectively equivalent to a no vote.
Okay.
So yeah, go ahead.
No, so explain to people what happened then, because even though
Yeah.
we did the
So
show, people
yeah,
need to understand what that means now.
right. So the yes votes, there were 232,017 yes votes. And then there were 180,714 no votes. But there were 34,300 and about 380 blank votes and about over 1,700 overvotes. So if you just take the yes votes compared to all of those other no, blank, and over, the yes votes got 51.7% on this report, on this summary. And so there's going to be more, there's going to be more to go over, but I don't know that it will make it change the outcome. So the yes votes got 51.7% of all the ballots. that had the constitutional amendment on it and actually were returned, right? They got just under 52%. Even though the no votes were about 40%, if you factor in the blank votes and the overvotes, now you're at 48% not being in favor. So it was a very close call. It could have gone either way. And I guess you're probably right. Some people are probably surprised that it is that close. And it'll be interesting to see what the final vote on it is.
Well, I think the numbers are probably closer. And the reason I say that is because so many people came up to me telling me they voted yes, thinking that yes meant traditional marriage. So they definitely don't have the high, back when we did this in 1998, right? It was like almost 70% of the people knew what they were voting for. It was very, very clear.
Right.
Um, and what this means, for those of you listening and watching, what this means is now we're going to go back to, because now they're going to strip that language from our Constitution, because that's what you voted when you said yes. You said we're going to repeal this language. So that language is going to go away. It's not going to be there anymore. And we're going to go back to the court's decision of, I believe it was 1993, right, Fritz, where they
That's
said
correct.
that there is a
Yeah.
constitutional right to same-sex marriage. So now same-sex marriage is now in our Constitution. So that's what that means. And we'll see with the 18,000 votes we're still waiting for, if this changes. I'm not sure, but it would be interesting if they could overturn that. Um, yeah. So, Diamond, I'd like to get your opinion on the fourth charter amendment question, where we were going to give if we had voted no on that, then they would have carte blanche been able to give themselves any kind of raises, right? The city council. But the yes votes prevailed on that. So they're going to now be capped. So I'd love to get your thoughts on that. Even though you're not a councilman, you work closely with them.
Yeah, for sure. And this topic sparked lots of controversy this last year when the council gave themselves a massive 64% pay raise, and that just did not sit right with most people in Honolulu. And what's interesting is the two council members that vocally opposed the pay raise were both unopposed this election cycle. And because I think the backing of the people was there. They were thankful, they were appreciative. But this charter amendment simply says that if there is going to be a pay raise, it won't be decided by the actual council, and it's capped at 5% per raise, and it's tied to all the other city employees when they get raises. So it makes sense. I think that should have happened a long time ago. I think this was actually passed to kind of save face from the voters and make it
Right.
look like we're trying to do the right thing after they just approved themselves a 64% pay raise. So anyway, I I voted yes. I'm glad it passed.
Yep, that's the only one that won for me. I mean, I didn't get too many things right. So it's a good thing I'm not a gambling person, right, Fritz? So, in this last maybe 6 minutes or so, I want to kind of give you the free for all, because I know that you have your own thoughts about the election and things you want to share. So we'll let you go, Fritz, and then after that, Diamond, you can jump in and let me know your thoughts.
Well, I think what Diamond led with was really the story in Hawaii, which is it's a continuation of um, increased Republican representation out on the Ewa Plain and the west side of Oahu. And that's really good news. It's because of people like Diamond who've gone in there, decided they're going to roll up their sleeves and really get to work and try to win those seats. And they have like Diamond says, they have a receptive public, but they need to have candidates, and they need to have candidates who are funded, who are making an effort to get their message out and can relate to the voters. It helps that they come from that area, that they've lived on this island for some time, and that they get out there. Two of the two candidates that were kind of, I think, maybe all of them, because I wasn't into the weeds, but I recall seeing negative articles on both David Alkos Republican running for reelection, Eva Beach, Lena, and also Representative Purick, right? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right. Um, but they went after Elijah for being an extremist. That was in the articles, and that gets echoed into the radio and television media. And he still was holding his own, but it looks like it looks like he may lose that race. So you got to figure there's always going to be an effort to take out any minority members or people that are more conservative, um, and you have to be ready. You have to be ready for that. I did want to say that, and maybe Diamond can speak more to this. Representative District 44. Well, Representative District 43 was decided in the primary, right, where the Republican incumbent was elected as the Republican nominee, and there was no Democrat in that primary. But the same thing happened in District 4. In that case, the winner of the Democratic primary was elected. I'm curious to know if there was a Republican out there who might have run and been competitive. Does Diamond have any information on that?
Inside ball game. Go ahead.
I think so, Fritz. If we had a solid candidate in that District 44, I think it is,
Yeah.
Nanakuli Miley, that is one of the top two most winnable districts statewide. In fact, back in 2020, there was only two House districts that Donald Trump won in. One was District 40 in Eva Beach, and one was District 43, which is now 44 in Nanakuli Miley. And so if we had a candidate there, I'm pretty sure we would have won that seat and completely flipped West Oahu red.
Wow, that's good. And yeah, you have limited resources, but it really helps to have a candidate, a good candidate, and that can be competitive and take advantage of what happened. And you could already see it in the primary. And Eva, we can go back to our primary podcast, right? That
Yep.
we noticed that there were, especially on the west side, Eva Plain, there were a lot of people that chose the Republican primary ballot, even though there's usually more visible contests on the Democratic side for other races,
Right.
And so you could see that there's a shift, and there's more people taking a Republican primary ballot. So that's kind of similar to the mainland, where they say, the Republican registration increased, and in some cases eclipsed or passed the Democratic registration. The way we tell how many Republicans are out there, or as opposed to Democrats, is who takes a Republican primary ballot. The Democrats still have people generally take the Democratic ballot more often, but the Republicans are catching up. So you could see that even back in August, there was that sense, and it did play out where you see high Republican ballots in the primary. You're going to see Republican votes coming in the general election, and that pretty much worked out that way. So, and I take my hat off to Diamond and his cohorts, to get 3 new seats. Unfortunately, we may lose one, but to have net gains, and to have Samantha DeCourt win, as Diamond said, I think it is the first time, since statehood, that there's a Republican state senator on that the Leeward Coast. That's really remarkable. I think Brenton Ava is also, his reelection is amazing, because he didn't have any signs anywhere. I went out to the North Shore. I saw his opponent's signs all over the place. I guess he's holding signs probably. And Senator Ava didn't send out any mailers that I know of. I guess he tries to keep in touch with his constituents, and it looks like he still is going to win. So he must be doing something right. Although I wouldn't. That would not be the strategy I would recommend, even for an incumbent senator, to get reelected.
All right, Diamond, we've got 2 minutes left. I want to give you the last word. Whatever you want to talk about the election and maybe give us a little bit of a warning what could come up next session.
Sure. Well, I think the bottom line is this election gives us hope here in Hawaii that change is possible. It just takes hard work. It really takes hard work. Prior to statehood, Hawaii was a one-party state. It was Republican, and it was Union Democrats, progressives who really worked super hard and went to the plantations and organized their people and brought them together on a grassroots level, and they took over Hawaii. It's possible. It's time to do it again. This new generation of people, they're not partisan. They haven't been brought up on the plantation era. They're looking at the cost of living, raising their kids here, and they're realizing the Republican platform is the way to go here in Hawaii, and so they're voting accordingly. I would just encourage anyone out there to rise up in your own community, contact us, let's organize. Let's work together because Hawaii can flip red. Most people here in Hawaii share our values. It's just a matter of education and turning them out to vote. So, this coming session, pay attention because there'll be a few more members in our caucus in both the House and Senate. There was net gains in both chambers. That's never happened in a long time here in Hawaii, where we're actually adding numbers in both chambers of the legislature. So, stay tuned. The fight's not over. We got Trump at the White House. We won the Senate, most likely the House, and here in Hawaii, we're increasing. So God is good.
God is good. So we really appreciate both of you spending time with us today. So make sure you guys like this video, share it, subscribe, hit that notification button so you know every time we upload a new video. And stay tuned because I'm going to have Diamond back and we're going to have Pat Psyche back to talk about Title IX and what's coming up here in the States. So stay tuned for that. Mahalo, everybody, and we'll see you all next week. Thank you.
Mahalo.
Aloha.